Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to day one of Ignite Your Soul Connection. This year's topic, or this season's topic, is Let's Save Our Family. Now, for those of you who may not know us, we have been bringing you this online conference now since 2011, right? 2011. So, 2011. What is this? Is this? Yeah. So that's over 10 years, right?
2022.
Yeah. So if you want to review the other videos or the other tapings of some of our topics, you will find that we have a YouTube channel, and it is called Ignite Your Soul Connection. Please go over there and subscribe. Listen to some of the teachings, get familiar. Our commitment is to share knowledge with you that's going to make a difference for now and the future. And the information that we're sharing, we want it to pass down into generations. So that's why we record it. That's why we take time to do this. And that's why we don't charge you for it. It is no cost to you other than to listen. My name is Rita Stewart. Most people call me Mushim Su because my name means she who follows God in divine essence. And I am purposely doing this work and doing what my heart and my soul has asked me to do this incarnation. Tonight, I am excited to talk to three of my amazing friends. I must have the most awesome friends on the planet because every time I say that, I'm like, wow, these are really my friends. These are my friends. I've been rolling with Greg for over 30 years, and I've been rolling with Wendi for the past 6 or 7 years or 8 years. Miss Legaux, about 23 years. So when I say my friends, I mean that with the deepest and the sincerest joy and love that I can muster, because they teach me and they help me to become who I am. So when you're listening tonight to what we're sharing, what we're discussing with one another, I want you to listen to them the way that I do. I honor them and I'm grateful for them. Okay, so we're going to start off and have them introduce themselves. Tonight's conversation is the balance of male and female energy. The reason that is an issue right now is because we have so many families that are in disruption because they do not understand, or understand that the balance of male and female energy is out of whack. It is completely off. It's skewed. And so we have to do what we can to bring it back into balance so that our families can have more joy, more peace, more abundance. Okay, we have to provide the structure. So we have three Capricorns on, on this call tonight.
Wow.
We're gonna make sure you get some structure.
Actually, we got four.
Or who's the fourth
You.
one? No, I'm the third one. Wendy is Leo. Wendy
Oh,
bringing
okay.
that fire.
Okay.
Wendy bringing that fire tonight. So let's start off with my brother King, who Ausar Aten. Can you please introduce yourself? Take a few minutes and familiarize the audience with what you do, who you are. Uh, you know, Let them get a sense of your expertise and how they'll be listening to you tonight.
Awesome. Awesome. First of all, I want to say my name is Ausar. I go by Greg Stanton also. That's my government name. But those who know me for the work that I'm doing is I go by Ausar. I've been part of Master Force since approximately 2010. I believe I was with the first course. And it kind of changed my life. It was at a time in my life where my wife of 30 years had just passed. and it was probably 3 months into the passing. And so I believe it was an excellent opportunity for me to center myself, be present to what was going on as I prepared to move forward. It was very instrumental in me making some shifts. And we're going to talk about one particular shift, moving from being a very patriarchal leader in my family. We had 4 adult children at that time. Since that time, we have 4 adult children and 10 grands. So my late wife had the opportunity to experience each child having one, and now I got left holding the bag of 10. So that's a little bit about me in regards to my family life. I have spent the last 30 years of my life in in ministry. I pastor a non-traditional ministry called Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. It's steeped inside of metaphysical science. I'm leaning more towards comedic thought. So I've been doing that for 30 years. I've been inside of a 30-year unfolding conversation of shifting from traditional Christianity, and Mushim Su has been very instrumental in that. When I first started the journey, I met her at the bookstore over with the Ausar Set Society. That's how we initially met. What really kind of makes me the subject matter expert? Because my life has been experiential. I follow a craft called Cards of Destiny, and I'm a queen of spades. And as a queen of spades, that card as a queen, that's the primary energy that I have had to learn to run. Being a male and having that card, it showed up as part of my life mastery to integrate my maleness along with the female energy. So I've been inside of pastoring for 30 years. I was a professional counselor for 30 years. In addition to that, I shifted approximately in 2010 from counseling to coaching. I founded a much more practical platform, and I saw major strides in my clients' lives. Since that time, I went back to work for the federal government. I was with the military 10 years, United States Navy, and then I worked for the Department of Health and Human Services and resigned in 98 with 18 years of federal service. Took 20 years off and decided to come back 2 years ago to the federal government to pick up my retirement money. So I'm right at retirement. And so I've worked with veterans in the conversation of employment. So that's a little bit about me.
That is so
Wow.
wonderful. That's great. I mean, 10
Yeah.
grandchildren. That's
Yes.
beautiful.
So it really is Father's Day for me.
It
Yes.
really is.
Happy
Happy
Father's
Father's
Day.
Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah.
That's so
Wow.
wonderful. Okay, and then the next coach we're going to go to is Miss Legaux, because I think, Miss Legaux, you were just a year before Wendi. So,
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. I want to say, and I want to just make this connection with Brother Ausar because I didn't know your story. Brother Ausar married, he performed the marriage at my wedding, and so I didn't even realize, just all of your story. I was definitely thankful for
Because it
you.
was about you.
'Cause I know, but now I'm hearing, and especially the connections, just the connections that we have that I didn't realize at all. So I'm Tinishia Legaux. Um, Professionally, I'm an educator. I've been teaching for years. This is how I know Mushim Sud. I was about to say Miss Stewart, but I'm like Mushim Sud. This is how I know, from the schools, from being a mentor to me, to me there, and kind of transitioned. I became a master force coach, 2020, I think, but it was after my husband passed. And so kind of what led me so that's why it's interesting because I'm like, you were there when we got married. Both of you, were there when
yeah.
we got married. And then when he passed, it was just really, I was in a process of really having to discover and rediscover and kind of refigure out who I am, what my purpose is, how I kind of put life back together and move forward. And becoming a master force coach um, just was exactly what I needed to just help me begin a healing process, a process that I'm still in, and a process that I'm happy to help others along on as well. So I will say that the reason, when I saw this about what makes me a subject area expert, which I'm always like expert, but I think what makes me, why I was drawn to this topic, because when I saw the list of topics, as soon as I saw the balance of male and female energies, it's something that I feel like I've been talking about so much with just because I am a widowed mom of 2 boys. And so I have a 10-year-old son, I have a 19-year-old son. Like I said, with my husband, and we were a family unit, and then the male energy transitions. And then I kind of had to figure out, and like I said, I'm parenting two males, lost the male, physical energy. And in the process, for me, it's an ongoing process of just learning and discovering. And so that's why I'm so excited for this conversation tonight.
Wonderful. And thank you. And I'm getting ready to say Miss Legaux.
I know.
Thank you, Tinishia. That's because we in the hallways with the
I
children.
know. It's like in school, at school, everybody's last names.
That's right. So, yes, and thank you for being here, and thank you for just allowing me to just love you as much as I do.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's been needed, and it's so much the reminder. And I think in all of the process, it's just the reminder, because when you lose, like sometimes you're so focused on the loss, and it's like to really focus on what you have and how the things that you have, how God just continues to hold you in different ways, and kind of provides for you in different ways. And so I love the idea of this, even talking about it in terms of energy, not just male and female beings, but really it's the energy. Yeah. And so when a person leaves, the energy is still there, and how we, take advantage and how we understand it, I think is part of the conversation tonight.
Yes. And I can't wait to delve into it and hear your ideas and concepts. So, okay. And now, hey, Miss Wendi. Now, Wendi will always have a special place for me because she threw me the most amazing birthday party. I want to say about 5 years ago, and it turned out to be a purple rain party, and that was the same year that Prince died. So we were like, oh my goodness, thank you that we had that memory forever and ever. And so Wendi, come in and tell us about yourself and let the people get to know you.
Thank you. And yes, that was a great party. I was happy to share that life experience with you.
Yes.
My name is Wendi Wiltfang, and I live in Northwest Indiana, and I have lived here my whole life. I became a Master Force coach in the fall of 2021, and I've known Ms. Shamsut, like she said, 7 or 8 years, and I would always hear her talking about coaching program or coaching course, and just I would bring up something like muscle testing. I'd bring up something to her that I had learned about, and she'd say, well, we cover that. We that's what we do. That's what I course. I would say, okay. And finally last year, she was next to me in my car, and I think something similar to that had happened. And I said, course? And you said, yes, absolutely. Like, I've been waiting for you to ask. And so timing is everything.
Timing is everything.
Yes, it was time. It was absolutely the right time for me. So, so I did it. The reason that I'm here is I went through a divorce, which I just figured out 12 years ago this month. I went through a divorce. I'd been married 13 years, and it was definitely my broken open moment in life. Up until that point, I thought I had everything figured out. I was in control. I knew how things were going to be. Definitely cared about looking perfect, being perfect. I knew what was best for everybody else. If you would just do this, then your life would work just like mine, except behind the curtain, what nobody saw was it didn't. Mm. And so that put me on a journey that centered around the masculine and the feminine, because I was high masculine in my relationship. And basically, growing up, I looked at the men and I looked at the women and I thought, I don't want to be the women. If I get to choose, I'm going to be the man, subconsciously, which led into the controllingness and the perfection. So that is what I have been working on these last 12 years for myself and for the people around me. And it is my passion for myself. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and that I share this information with in these life experiences. And then I have a sister and a niece and a nephew who are very close to me. And then my grandparents are very close to me in Oklahoma. And I go out and take care of them every month, every other month. So that's what I got going on.
Wow, Wendi, that is so amazing. And I can tell that you're going to really add some spiciness to tonight's conversation. I can hear that already. So let's delve in. The first question that I want to know is what would you say are the primary characteristics of feminine energy? Greg, let me hear you first. The primary qualities of feminine energy, what would you say they are?
Well, one that stands out most for me because of the work that I'm doing has to do with intuition, intuitiveness. That's one that's big that I have had to work through, being a male in a male body, and always need to deal with the reality of things and looking into what I have experienced to determine what I should do, stop working for me. And so intuitiveness, just being willing to flow with your intuition, your feeling self. Another one for me was compassion, working from a place of compassion, and also being open to receive versus giving all the time, and which was difficult for me, and still there's a level of difficulty for me to just receive. I have to be aware that filtering the opportunity so I be present to that. So those are some of the primary elements that I really see as divine, as feminine energies.
Very good. And Tinishia, what would you add to that? He said intuition.
So I would add to it kind of nurturing, kindness, the softer, gentler side, that emotional kind of element. I think women are associated with that right brain intuitive side as well. The idea of patience or passiveness. Another word I wrote down that was interesting as I was, it's this idea of yielding, just yielding.
Mm-hmm. When you said passiveness, that's exactly what I wrote down, yielding.
Yeah. Yielding. Mm-hmm.
Because it takes a certain level of discipline to yield. Whereas being passive is not about discipline, it's more about withholding. If you can
withholding.
So yielding really is a sense of, that you really have to be disciplined to do that. Right? Okay, Wendi. So let's hear what you would add, or even if you have a comment about any of those in your struggle to find those qualities for yourself.
Yes. Yes, what I would add is being connected to my heart. and slowing down,
Stillness.
because in the masculine is get it done, make it happen, force it. This is going to happen one way or another, the easy way or the hard way. And so, yeah, slowing down and allowing time, not being in such a rush of time, because allowing time for things to move in a flow in my favor, one way or another, whether I know it or not.
Yeah, it's so interesting because when you hear that, you can hear what's inside of that is opening to receive means that you are allowing the flow. You're being patient. You're allowing your intuition to direct you instead of trying to hurry up and make something happen. Instead of forcing something, you're pulling back, you're yielding to what the universe may be providing. Can you hear that? I mean, the way that just fell in there, I'm like, wow, that really is. But do you actually see that being demonstrated in relationships with male and females?
Not often enough.
Not enough.
Often enough.
That's where the conflict comes in.
And
Say more about that, Greg.
So when it shows up, example, if I'm walking totally inside of male energy, when the female energy presents itself, it can be a struggle, because it's not a dance, it's not allowing. She should feel like me, think like me, and that's where the battle begins instead of being open to receive. That's that receptive piece. Giving instructions. So that's why coaching was a beautiful thing for me, because coaching operates inside of not just giving but being receiving.
Yeah, I think
yielding.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about the conflict that comes, I think what you bring up about I want the other person to think like me and do what I would do. And that's where the natural conflict, because what we described is like it's two totally different energies, it's two totally different ways of being. And if you don't have an understanding that they both go together, or they work together, and if you don't really have a respect for both, because it's like this is the way I process things. I can understand a person processes it totally different and respect their process. And then I think when we have conflicts, we can, we hopefully can communicate better and really come from a place of respect, as opposed to you don't think like me or you're wrong, or that kind of right or wrong, where I think a lot of the conflicts exist. So I think having that's why this conversation is so important, because I know this was not something, I was raised to understand. It's kind of like women do these things and men do these things, but not really describe. And that was more of like cook, clean, those kind of things, like the things you do.
The roles that people play. It was more the roles
people play. Yeah, as opposed to more of a way of being, and then if you understand the way of being, well, the roles make sense relate to the way of being. It's like, yeah, cooking makes sense when you're a nurturer, and space and those kinds of things. And so this idea of just the energies and kind of like the ways of being and the respect for both ways of being, and understanding that they are connected and that they balance each other, I think is also a missing piece.
Very good. And then Wendi, so what would you describe the top characteristics of male energy? What would you list as a few of those?
Of male energy,
Yeah.
like thinking, doing, logic,
Those are good. Those are good. Those are good.
analyzing.
Greg, what would you add to that?
She's reading me.
Your mind. She's reading your notes.
No, she's reading me as a person, as a male. Um, Being firm. Um, that's one of the things that I had to shift, and we're gonna talk about then when we come around to that. Is when the female part of the relationship left, and I was parenting. The firmness wasn't working, wasn't going to work. Lo, Rationality, just being um, everything can come down to logic and be rational. You're not rational, so just those are some of the things that stands out for me alongside of what she shared. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Miss Legaux, what would
having
you
to lead, having to lead.
to
You
lead?
know,
Yeah, leader.
Lead. Hmm. Yeah, I would add to that kind of like courageousness, confidence, this idea of action, active. The other thing I would add to it is protection, responsibility, and stability.
You know that whole the whole conversation about protection is huge in our community because it's missing, right? It's missing. It's almost like the men who are left, they don't realize that they're supposed to protect the women and the children, because that really is the energy and the ability that they have to do. When you look at science, African American males have the highest level of testosterone on the planet. Okay, the highest level of testosterone. The second highest to that is African American women. Then you have white males, and then you have white females, right? So,
Wow.
yeah. So when you think about how things have progressed in our communities, most of the time, what has been taken away is the black man, right?
Hmm.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Been locked up, put it, yeah. So the protection isn't there. So then, do the women become the protectors? Has that happened? I don't think so. Can you see
I
that?
mean,
Can you see
yeah,
that
I
women
mean,
cannot take that role? It just doesn't show up as possible for as an energy and still be
right.
feminine. I mean,
well,
it's wrong. Go
I
ahead.
think what protection looks like in feminine energy looks different. And because I would say when I was thinking of this idea of protection, I guess I was looking at it from the sense. So to me, when I think of protecting my sons, I go to God and pray. Like that's what I do to protect, like I'm more of like on that level of like energies or whatever. I'm not gonna run out to the thing. To me, I'm like, that's more of what a male is gonna do. I'm gonna jump up, but I'm gonna get still. I'm going to send them energy. I'm going to protect from the feminine, space of protection. So I think it's there, but I definitely agree with you of the imbalance, just the imbalance in our communities
Yeah.
right now. And even with that, and sometimes that protection, and I know we're going to talk about kind of this toxic masculinity or, because I feel like also there's a space when you think of the killings that go on in our community, under protection, some of that is under a protection piece, of who did something to somebody and now they come back and, and those pieces as well, where it's not, I don't think it's many times guided in the right way with the right spirit, as well. But a lot of that is masculine energy gone rogue,
Right.
like going rogue on each other. The
Right.
testosterone that we're talking about, this is, it's
They're
directed
protecting the wrong things.
exactly
Protecting the wrong things.
right, because it's protecting my block. It's
Right.
it's certain things, and so it's it's energy. It's like I said, when we think about it as the energy of it is there, but is it directed? Does it have proper vision and guidance among
So Wendy, what are you hearing? Because I don't want this to be this isn't intended to be a cultural conversation, although it will be that. But I wanted to also be inclusive inside because we are all family, and we tend to forget that. We have been taught to be that, you know, you're Caucasian over here, you're African American over here, and nothing crosses. But that's not true. It's not true. So tell me your side about that with the male and female energy and the protection piece.
Yes, when you said, you know, have the women stepped in to fill that role, my first answer was yes. But that's the best that they can, basically. That's my perception, you know, whether it's true or not. And whether it works or not is a whole different discussion. But yeah, I see that they do step in for the protection because it's all they got. I look at, you know, mothers of, you know, their children, boys or girls.
Mm-hmm.
It's all these kids have. In some cases, they don't have a man to do that for them.
Helicopter moms, you know, that's what I thought of, like the helicopter moms. That's you know, a role.
And I think as human, we have the propensity to run whatever energy is necessary, but it can take it out of balance.
Yes.
Like if you have a female who's running a strong, what we would, let's say, male energy, because when we talk in this side of the conversation, and we'll get to it, I believe, that we can't just let it be tied to phenotype, that a male runs a male energy, a female runs a female
That's
energy.
right. That's right.
We have to, yeah. So, but we have to always be conscious of the balance. Like we have our women who are in the military, and they're finding that there are some challenges when it comes back to the nurturing part, coming back to the home after being maybe in battle or in an environment where she has to be on the same level of energy of protecting as that male. And they step up to the plate and do it because they've been trained to do it. But it goes against the grain of the natural essence of a female. Not meaning it's less than, but it creates a whole nother set of challenges in today's society.
You know, that's really great. You guys are making some amazing points. It brought me to a story, and you know, being that you've gone through classes with me, I'm sorry that you're gonna have to hear this one again. But I was 14 when
Recapitulated.
That's right. Okay. I was 14 when this guy in my neighborhood, he had started stalking me when I was 12. And the third time that he tried to rape me, I actually had a 22 automatic in my pocket, in my purse, my little white shoulder bag. And I shot him in his butt.
I never heard this story.
You never heard that one?
Oh my goodness. Greg, I had to shoot the dude. And you know, then it was like, you know, for my life, right? For my life, I got, because he was running away, but he had tricked me. He made me think that he had a gun. Come to find out, he had just taken a brown paper bag and twisted it up and had it stuck in the back of his shirt, right? And when I realized that's what it was, I pulled out my little pearl-handed 22 automatic, and you know, I aimed at it. He started running, so I shoot him, and I'm front of a apartment building where my friends lived, and the mother, you know, the mothers used to sit in the window. She's sitting out there, and I shot him. When I realized I hit him, he fell. I threw the gun down on the, you know, curb, and she yelled out, "Little Rita, get up here!" And I went to run. She said, "Get that gun." I grabbed the gun and I ran upstairs, and she took the gun. She said, "Go back there and watch TV." And she's looking out the window. You know, people don't miss stuff, right? She's just sitting there. About 15, 20 minutes later, the police going through the building, knocking on the door, knocked on her door, and he said, "We're looking for somebody named Rita." The guy said she shot him. And she said, "Rita? You mean little Rita?" You know, and I really was little, tiny. You know, if you've seen my daughter, I was kind of her size, just tiny, right? And she said, "Little Rita, come here." And I came up to the door, and she said, "You talking about this little Rita?" And the guy said, Did you where's the gun you shot the guy with? She said, you're not gonna talk to her. She's been here with me all day. Her grandmother is at work, her mother's in the hospital. You don't talk to her. She's been here with me. So you go find somebody else. And she closed the door. Okay.
Protection.
Protection.
Protection. Okay. On two
Wisdom.
Because I had
Wisdom, intuition.
Mhm. Protection.
But you know, I got a little upset recently doing some healing work around that because the fact that in this community I had to protect myself from this guy bothered it made me feel a certain way. Does that make sense? It was like, why would I at 14 have to shoot? Because that could have went really bad, guys. Suppose he would have died. You understand what I'm saying? That's a whole nother, because he didn't say nothing else about it because he was just hurt, He just went on, got fixed, and went on about his business, right? But if that bullet would have went differently and would have killed him, now here you are with a kid going to Audi home or something, So that level of protection, I don't know. I don't want girls to have to do that. But if they can,
Right. 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 Right.
Right. I mean, to me, I guess what I heard from that story, because I'm like, no, their mother protected, like their mother protected you in some sorts. And, even, in seeing like the male energy of protection, it doesn't mean that they're always going to be there. If you were in a situation where maybe no one else was there to do it, and you were able to protect yourself. And so in that piece, I mean, I definitely, for our community, it's like we need more protection, but I also feel like understanding that a lot of what we need is really already there as well.
yeah,
And it's really about, because sometimes we keep focused on we don't have what we don't have and we don't have. And it's like, well, let's talk about when we do see it, and we do see it, and we do see it. And it's going to spark us to see it more as well.
I totally agree. And one of the things that I just heard you say that showed up for me, and you've been saying it all along, Greg, is that the cultivation of that energy within the person is both male and female. So there are times that masculine energy has to be present.
Mm-hmm. And it has to come out of you to protect yourself, to protect you. Exactly.
Exactly.
And understanding that it's in all of us. It's in all of us. So, we don't necessarily have to wait, on someone else to be it for us or do it for us.
Otherwise, you would be a victim.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
And then you were able to exercise karma. He got his karma debt on that day.
You know what else came out of that? Everybody left me alone because they were like, "She crazy."
She crazy. Look at that. Look at that.
Everybody, she'll shoot you, man. You better not
Right.
Mushim Su, you were the first conceal and carry.
Right. In my little white purse. I was being all prissy too.
She said pearl handle. The pearl handle.
But when you guys were just describing male energy, when I made my list, I noticed that you did not put anger and aggression. Nobody said that. That was on my list.
I put that. So I have a list. I thought we were going to talk. I think what we're going to go to is what, in that kind of like toxic.
Yeah, we are. We're heading there now. So
I put
that's what that is?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead. Say more about it. What is that about when we're talking about distinguishing a man having toxic masculinity?
So it was interesting because when you put it as a question, it's one of those terms right now that I kind of cringe at because I don't like. It's like toxic masculinity.
I agree.
Don't use that.
So that term. But what I did see as I was kind of researching, it talked about excess masculine or feminine, or having wounded masculine and feminine. And so then I was like, that's what I think, that's how I'm couching toxic masculinity. You know, it's like it's in excess or it's wounded. You know, and so to me, it's these traits that we're talking about, you know, the masculine energy and this idea of divine masculine energy being this logical, disciplined responsibility, you know, active, courageous, etc. But then when we're talking about excess or wounded masculine or toxic masculine, then this is aggression, or this is abusive, or this can be a perpetrator, or it's controlling. This is forcing and it's rigid. I think it's kind of like when we get into those. And I think it's the same way with the, you know, with the feminine, even though you don't hear about that toxic femininity as much. I've heard that term, not as much as the masculinity, but I think it's kind of in the same realm where when there's excess, then that's the victim. You know, that's the victim, that's the needy, that's the codependent, that's the manipulator. You know, that's this powerlessness, or, you know, withholding, selfish, you know, those things are kind of like that wounded feminine energy.
Wendi, what would you add to that? Do you see, and I'm gonna come to you, Ausar. I want you to be last on this one. What would you add to that, Wendi?
What comes to mind that I've experienced with friends that are men is them opening up and sharing with me these ideas that we're talking about, the way they feel about themselves, the aggression, the anger, maybe some violence. They share these things with me, and they think that they're the only one. And that just it breaks my heart. But then it also shows me the possibility there that it's just because it's not being talked about. Is when I say, listen, you're not alone. Other men feel the way that you do.
So you're saying that they've experienced this toxic masculinity from other men towards themselves?
Well, it's how they feel about themselves, that they have these traits, but they keep them very hidden. And it basically festers, and they think they're the only one. They think there's something wrong with them, like broken. And so to be able to say you're not alone, like us women talk to each other.
We sure do.
About things.
We sure do.
And we have these excess, or wounded feminine traits. We all have that. But when we learn that another woman has the same thing, feels the same way, thinks the same way, that gives us some peace. And we say, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in that.
And we do talk to each other about it, and we do open up about it. So we're not ashamed of it. We actually share, you know, there's that being vulnerable, you know, that peace that we get to allow ourselves to empty.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, that's what I would add, is just that wounded masculine, you know, it's that they don't realize that how common those thoughts and those feelings are.
Yeah. Okay. Sarah, what would you say now?
Well, with the wounded masculine, sometimes so when men get together and they talk about situations, let's say the barbershop, as an example of a wounded masculine or toxic masculine would be aggression towards misplaced aggression, inappropriate aggression. Let's say as it relates to in a relationship. So a man puts his hand on a woman in the barbershop setting. Sometimes that conversation goes to affirming him, setting her right. That's a whole toxic conversation. And so what we have to understand, the comfortableness with the uncomfortable being made, or the inappropriate being made okay. Controlling an individual. So a toxic masculinity shows up as the need to control, the need to be right, having all the answers. Now, this sounds like it shows up in relationships, because for us, we really work on that energy by bouncing it against the counter energy. So when he's in a relationship with her, his toxicity will come forward at a greater level, because it's like a catalyst. Not that she's making him do anything, but that energy is different. And now that male has to identify, this is the work I'm in. But he only can know that it's a work he needs to be in if in the barbershop, someone would say it's inappropriate for you to put your hands on a woman, or you acted in an aggressive manner that didn't require that level of aggression. And so toxic, a lot of black men, we have toxic masculinity based on what has happened to us. And we often will misplace that aggression to someone who didn't even perpetrate it on us. Does that kind of make sense?
It really does. You know, one of the books that I love to use when I'm working with clients and especially couples is by Terrence Real. And this one book where he really talks about the relationship between the son and his mother, right? The son and his mother. And when the mother is either too busy, she's unnurturing, she's unloving, this son, that aggression and anger boils in him. And he begins, as he gets older, to look for a woman to fulfill that. And if that woman is unable to fulfill that, that's where that aggression shows up. The name of the book is I Don't Want to Talk About It by Terrence Real. And so a lot of times when I'm working with clients, I really do work with men to go back and look at themselves as little boys and really begin to see, where that anger began to, mommy, I'm busy, leave me alone. Whereas, whereas with women, like Wendi said, we can go find our girlfriends. We start at a very young age, finding our friends to talk to. But with boys, they take it inside and become angry. Does that make sense?
Yes, I have an example of that for, okay, so misplaced, like example, I grew up in an intact home. My father was the disciplinarian. Also, my mother was a disciplinarian. But something strange happened when I reached like about 16. There was 15. There was a situation that transpired, and my mother wanted to whoop me. And I stopped her and I said, "You can talk to me." Because I just felt like it was going to shift our relationship. Now, if my father was about to chastise me, I probably would have just dealt with it. But it was about to change the dynamic between me and my mother. And I had the wherewithal to say, "Ma, you can talk to me. I'll take ownership for what I did wrong." But the aggressiveness towards me right now, because you have to know the kid. I was the kind of kid that you can talk to me. And that would have changed my entire relationship, I believe, not only with her, but with women in general.
Yeah, I think another kind of element of that toxic masculinity has to do with kind of the socialization, and so we just kind of went through like female energies, and we talked about male energies, and we talked about each person has both,
Yep.
many times where the toxic masculinity also comes in is when we're trying to socialize, like, look, this is what a man does.
Roles, right?
This is what a man, don't do that. That's what women do, those energies things. And what happens is when you have, young men as they're growing up and they're being told, you throw your feelings. You can't, that's not what men do. You can't cry. That's not what men do. That's what women do. And they're dealing with these, they're dealing with kind of like this, this battle within themselves. And then many times that causes them to go over and then suppress their feelings. Then it comes out as anger, so a lot of it is kind of the outcomes of being socialized a certain way, either by parents or just by society, you know, as a whole. I think that's also part of what becomes toxic.
Yeah, and it's roles that I see that as when you're hard fast to a role. When I'm
Exactly.
doing couples coaching before marriage, I talk about what roles their parents had in the relationship. Talk about what roles do you naturally like. I enjoy doing washing dishes, mopping floors, keeping a clean house. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. So if I have a mate who thinks that's what she should do, it could be conflictual. She may not know how to handle that. But so we talk about roles. In order to have a healthy relationship, roles are important.
Yeah, and that gets me to the question of when do you say or see women acting like men? I hear people say that all the time. Men are saying to me all the time, all these women act like men, and I'm thinking, well,
Well,
not in
it's
my
overboard.
circle, right? I said not in my
It's
circle,
overboard.
friend.
It's overboard. The- and I see it in the street. It's that they are. I see a lot of young women, not the older women as much as the younger women, the millennials. They're in men's faces. They could say whatever they want to do, and I think that's just a aggression based on not having what they should have gotten from that male in their lives. But I'm seeing women show up kind of because now we're at this place in society where women can do any and everything, which is cool, but there's a femininity that is going away. That
Yeah.
is I'm observing.
Yeah, I think too, and I think it's related to this. And I was thinking about what Wendy said earlier. Sometimes I think when we look at what's a woman's role, what's a woman's role, and what's a man's, men are initiators, they're aggressive, they're gonna go out and get what they want. Women are gonna sit back and be submissive, be the, and it just sounds weak. It sounds weak. And I think many times I think some women are, it's kind of like, who wants to be weak? If that's, if they don't see the strength of that. And so that's why it's important to have this conversation of like operating in your femininity is not operating in weakness. It's not operating as a victim. I mean, there are people that do, but understanding that that's something else. Operating in your femininity is really understanding your power, that power looks different. There's a power in sitting back and reading a situation and being able to say the right thing to the right person at the right time and move a situation, that women can bring. And many times I think it's not celebrated. I also think the roles, and I think this is where this toxic masculinity comes in as well, because many see there's a hierarchy, it's a man's world, it's a man's world, where there's a hierarchy.
It's said that it's a man's world. It's said that it's a
World. Yeah, and I would just say, society wise, this is where, I mean, this not just said, this is a result. Men are paid more than women for the same, like
that
there's
whole
some real
conversation, and Greg mentioned it real early on, patriarchy.
That patriarchy, is real. And so I do feel like part of what we're seeing as far as women being more masculine, it's an effect of, of kind of being in a patriarchal society, not understanding and recognizing the real power in femininity, as well. And I think all of that kind of contributes to an imbalance.
Well, Rita, you said it's a man's world. That takes me back. I want to reference James Brown.
He said,
19
without a woman's touch.
Without a woman's,
It
without a
wasn't me.
woman. He says without a woman or a little girl.
Right.
Those balance you out.
He said it, but we just say that first part, right?
Right. Y'all just said the
the
first
first
part.
part.
He can't, but he said that 3 times, and then he gonna say at the end, but it wouldn't be anything,
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
He had to save face with the guys. But he had to make space for the truth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when do you have to speak to this question? When do women act like men?
Yes.
Because you said you were strict. You had all your male energy flowing in your marriage. Chuck, tell us about it.
Yes, completely, completely. And I, what I didn't believe, I didn't believe that good men just wanted to help me and do nice things for me just because. I always thought there was a catch.
Mm.
So
It
that
was,
overstimulated.
yep, I'm good.
Making that
I'm good.
opportunity.
No, I don't need you to buy a drink for me. I don't need you to buy my dinner. I don't need you to put my suitcase in the car.
Yeah.
I just, and the women who requested that and allowed that, I saw them as weak.
Mhm.
Although deep down, that was what I really wanted.
Wow.
And so now, just, you know, in these years that have gone by, basically me being a mad scientist and being challenged, you know, like, okay, well, you know, I ask for coaching, I ask for advice, people give it to me, I read books. And then, as much as I didn't want to believe it, I thought, well, maybe I'll go see. I'll test it and see.
Yes.
And it's still is shocking to me, but I believe that it is true, that it is really, really true, that men really just want to help you. They just want to open the door. They just want to pick up something heavy and put it in the car. And a thank you and a smile is complete.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna ask you, Wendy, if that came from if that idea that they wanted something ulterior motive or whatever, did that come from an experience or did that come from kind of socialization? Or
I think socialization. I think, yeah, I can't remember an exact moment. There may be. But I think just I don't want to owe anybody anything. And or I think maybe my mom don't lead them on. Don't lead on men. You know, don't be a tease.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's something that in relationship, so I've been told that I'm too friendly, basically because I smile.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, you were drawn to me because I smile and because of my energy. And then that's the one thing that, you know, sometimes they would want to control, and that just wasn't going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But just being in that energy and asking for help, asking for something I can totally do for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's really great, Wendy.
I
I can see so much of myself in you, because I do remember being told you can't accept anything from a man because he's gonna want something. And I remember being 17, working as a waitress at the Steak and Egger on 117th in Michigan. And I would come in after school and go to work or work on the weekends. And you know, men would come and get a cup of coffee and leave a $10 tip in the water. One time a guy left $100 tip in the water. Another time he brought me some roses. Another time he brought me some earrings. My auntie said, take those earrings back. You cannot accept gifts. You're a waitress. You don't accept gifts. Don't bring those roses in here. You throw them in the garbage. And you know, so I developed this no thank you, like you did. So then a man tried to do something. Nope, I got it. I got a baby in this arm. I got a suitcase here, a hand here. Can I help you? Nope, I got it. This big, I can do this. You know, and now I'm looking, can you please help me with this? I had to learn, like Greg, I had to learn how to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have the same story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same story. And that's why I was asking, because there is a balance with that,
Yes.
there is a balance with that. We can't go around as women just thinking, it's kind of like there is that, because it's like we have to have wisdom, we have to have intuitiveness. And so it's kind of like, how do you balance being safe, being smart, because we're not victims, it's like we're not victims, we're strong, etc. But to still have that allowing, because that when we operate in that softer side, or when we operate just in that state of allowance, and I try to think about it now. I have the same kind of experience. I kind of had those, but when you're in, I feel like one of those things where it's like, keep living and life will teach you. And I'm like, as you keep living, so as I've kept living, I just see how when I open myself up, not just to men, because to me, I'm like, it's not about men, but I'm opening myself to life, and to the universe, and to what, and to the universe guiding me and giving me what I need. And that's kind of how I just put it out there in the universe, to giving me what I need. And, it still takes that intuitiveness, though, or whatever, because it's also, I found when I don't block as much, I am given, just many times, I can't even explain how many times, like just what I needed right at the, right at the time. It's like somebody will step in and let me carry that for you, let me carry that for you.
For men, we have to be conscious of manipulation, carrying it with the expectation, or carrying it to put her in a position, or doing something to, is not, you owe me something.
Exactly.
So toxicity can show up for either one of us through manipulation.
Through manipulation, that is
Using
true.
the feminine to manipulate, and masculine to manipulate. Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
When you're looking at the balance of male and female energy within yourself, have you had those challenges? Any of those challenges? I know we heard Wendi, but Greg, have you had those challenges where you've been out of balance, and how did you bring yourself back to the
So for me, if you can remember early on in conversations, when I was young in marriage, you knew Tony and I, and there were sometimes I would call you and you would circle me back to, I was kind of out of balance and out of bounds from the perspective of not trusting. And so when I look at me, my name is Sar. Asar is not a person. It represents an individual who has reached the fullness of running their masculine and feminine energy. So I'm always inside of, am I allowing my feminine self to have the dance? I didn't learn to do that until I can engage external relationships. So my external relationships have helped me to deal with my internal relationship, my internal masculine, my internal feminine. So it's always a challenge for me, first of all, to be open to receive. That's still that's a female energy that makes me uncomfortable, because I'm from a place, and like even the women who are in my life who are just my friends, I do not wine and dine them, but I'll take them. Let's go to lunch, and I have a different time with a woman saying, or anybody saying, "Hey, let's go to lunch." And when it becomes, I'll say, I got it. So the receptive part of me is important, because without that receptivity, there's no creativity in myself. So I'm constantly in that dance. Yeah.
That's really great. Go ahead. What do the rest of you getting ready to say? Miss Legaux?
I think no, I was definitely, that open to receive, and the that giving open to receive was something that I know I've grown in that as well. I think the one I struggle with is and I don't want to call it like aggressiveness, but I think for the most part, I'm kind of a more passive person, and kind of in that energy. And so when I have to be when I have to be the hard person. I struggle with it. So I struggle with it in parenting. And so
Like when we were in Egypt and we had to be real firm with those guys.
with those boys, remember those?
Don't
And
get
I'm
us
just
hung
so
over here, okay?
right. Exactly. And coming from so kind of, what I was saying was when I was married and my husband, I mean, he there was no, like he was a disciplinarian, he was a principal, it was like kids just didn't play with him. That was just it. And so because of that, I was able to be this mom that was the nurturer. You come to me, we hug, you get out of line, you go over there, you get straight, and then when he was gone, and then I have these boys and they're testing me, and they still continue to at times test me. And I have to like get out of myself, just in a way that I'm not as comfortable, as comfortable with. But it's the understanding that I have to do it is what they need. They need a more firm, they need the firmness, they need the structure, that part. And how to balance that with my nurturing, my nurturing side. That's the more comfort zone. So
the thing
for
about
me,
the Capricorn, though, you have a natural masculine, just the Capricorn, that's the father,
no, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do, but I don't feel like I've had to use it as much, if that makes sense.
So part of your life is to help you develop that,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's getting developed now, trust. And I hear myself sometimes like, okay. But I'm saying, you knew me as a teacher, it was like I was that teacher. I never had to yell at kids. It's just like I have a way of talking to kids, of making eye contact. I'm not gonna get loud. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna give you a stare. I'll give a look now. I gotta look. But that's about, I gotta look. But it's like with these boys, they looking at me like, I see you need more than a look at times. And so, and so I just have to push beyond and understand that that's in me too. The masculine energy is in me as well. And I just have to kind of lean into it and understand, I guess, the purpose, because I'm like, I'm raising boys. You're
raising men.
I'm raising men. Yes. I'm raising young men.
Because that, and one of the things that I really work to instill in parents is that you're not raising children. They're going to be adults much longer. So you're raising young people.
Young men, yes.
Young men. Yes. They're not going to. So you have to instruct them as though it's the future talking, not just in this moment. Discipline has to be a part of the work that they do on themselves.
On their own. And that's really been the work. That's really been the work. And the understanding, I mean, even with me saying like I'm not raising, I always say these are God's children. I'm like, these are God's children. These are God's children. And really the journey of it is really because I always say, I'm like, no, they've been my teachers, actually. Like they've been my teachers.
Yeah.
And so when and that's what I mean by, I'm like, when they push, it's really about my energies and me not being comfortable in those, in those male energies, having a level of imbalance at times. Mm-hmm. They have pushed and helped me develop, in those ways.
I want to bring up something controversial because people have asked me a million times about the conversation that Kevin Samuels has with so many people. In the conversation, the thing about women being submissive in relationships, and that men are looking for submissive women. High value men
are looking for submissive
women. So Sarah, what would you say? Okay, you have a frown on your face. Why do you have a frown?
No, I do not like submissive women. I like fireballs. I like women who have a voice and can communicate it in a way that's feminine. I totally disagree with high value high value, divine men don't want anything submissive. They don't want to control anything. It's so I'm not in that conversation with him on that. Some of his observations he made I can appreciate, but I don't believe a well-functioning individual want to be in a relationship with someone who is submitted to them. That's a cultural norm that doesn't work.
Okay, Wendi?
I don't know about that conversation, but when I hear that, first I'd want the definition of submissive, but it could go different ways. What I would say is that if they feel like they're going to the extreme, if they feel like they're dating women who are in their high masculine and that's not working for them, that then they're going way the other way and saying, well, if I have to pick between the two, a woman who's in her high masculine, then I want to find a woman who's submissive, because maybe they don't know that there's something in between or what they really want.
Good point.
So I looked up the definition of submissive.
Okay.
Ready to conform to the authority or will of others, meekly obedient. Meekly obedient or passive.
Yeah. I don't think any of us fit that.
I was just going to ask you, read it.
So
I was going to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, can you guys tell me where you are on that submissive scale?
I can yield now. I can
and so to me, so what I will say on it, because when I hear that word, I'm like submissive, but then I'm like, okay, I can agree that a man, high value, or medium value, I don't think it, and I would say anyone for that matter, doesn't want to have a partner that is combative.
I agree with that.
And yeah, so I would say they don't want a partner that's combative. And so submissiveness, and even that definition, but see, that meekly is the part I'm like, see, I don't know about meek, but when we talked about the feminine energy of yielding, of intuition, etc., I think parts of that could be in submissive. But I definitely agree with what Wendi is saying. I think when I see men that say I'm looking for a submissive woman, I put an asterisk by them, because I'm like, okay, something's going on with you. Something's going on with you, or you've had some particular struggles. Because the idea of a man leading, and we just talked about this, male energy is about leadership, is about, protection, etc. But if you have to, knock on your chest, I'm the leader, follow me, if you have to do that, I question your leadership style. I like something is imbalanced, I think, with you, because I think a divine feminine would naturally submit to a divine masculine.
How about use the word compliment?
And I like that word. Would compliment, and there would not be as much. Not saying any relationship is going to be perfect or without conflict, but I don't think it provides the opportunity for the combativeness, etc., that other kind of competing energies could have.
Yeah, because I would think in a genuine, authentic partnership, you want someone who
iron sharpens iron.
Come on,
iron sharpens iron.
You want somebody that can say, "Well, do you think we should really do that?"
Right.
Exactly. And I will say that men, you said the high value men, because I'm like, men that I talk to, like men that I know and talk to, they want a
compliment. They want the woman that compliments their
They want a partner. Yeah, it's like, no, they want a partner. They don't want a yes man,
Yeah.
They want a thought partner. They want a thought partner.
Right. Did you see how Rita says, do you think we should do it? See, that's different from the woman that said, oh, hell no, we ain't doing that.
Exactly. No, that's
Wisdom,
right. Do you
how to
think
talk to the man. Right, right.
How to talk.
how to talk to the man? Do you think we should do it? Let's talk this out. Like, let's talk it out. Okay, well, what are the pros of it? What are the cons of it? And then, because hey, men are logical, you know,
Right. You
we can
playing
do
my
the
domain
logic
now.
together.
Playing in
You
my
know?
domain. Right.
Right now we're in the domain. So it's also about having certain skills, I think, as well.
That's a good word. Certain skills. Do you know that we don't realize that we need skills in relationships?
I don't know why.
I don't know why.
Only,
Wendy said
only in the bedroom.
Oh, we got class. They got classes on that. They got classes on
we
that.
don't have bedroom questions, but we do have classes on that. That's right.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
But it's really interesting though. Wendy said I had to become a scientist.
Yes.
I had to test to
Mm-hmm.
see what I was doing or not doing to be in a great relationship. Why don't we realize that we have to learn and
Because
grow?
we're not taught how to be in relationship. And if we haven't, I mean, some people, even people that have seen, like, okay, I saw my parents,
Right.
but it's like, did you get instruction, or was that you just saw and kind of infer? So I'm like, it's so many conversations um that are not, that are just not, hey, how to choose a mate, how to, how to communicate, how to be a good partner, like how to be a good partner. A lot of times it's focused on, look for a man that's this, look for this, look for that. What about you? Have you looked at you? Have you looked at you? And so this idea of before we start looking, we better study self, and really understand the skills it takes to be in touch with ourselves and understand ourselves and communicate. So it's so much to learn.
It is so much to learn. So how do we what have you done in your either in your coaching with other people to help them bring balance to their relationships? Have you coached people or even yourself maybe? Are there things that you've done? Are there characteristics that you've had to develop? Have you actually did that type of work for you?
For me, so at the transition of my wife, I had to shift a role from being the disciplinarian, even though I had adult children. I found early on, they had a difficult time engaging me because they are so accustomed to engaging them from passionate listening, cultivating. So that this 12 years have helped me another dimension of who I am come forward. I'm much better today as a person because I have learned to listen. I have learned not to um, give direction. I have learned to be compassionate and caring. A lot of those things that weren't natural for many men, So that is being the primary parent, even though they're adult children, and now I have grandchildren, and I see myself interacting. That keeps my balance. When I interact with my grandchildren, children helps you go into the right balance.
Oh.
When I interact with especially my granddaughters, it's a whole nother thing than when with, I'm talking to my grandson differently. But then I'm now learning to talk to my grandson times the same way I talk to my granddaughters, showing them how to balance that thing out. Just the trajectory of life being at this point in my life, I'm still learning and unfolding, unpacking, becoming this awesome man.
Awesome.
What about you, Wendy? What have you done to bring more femininity into yourself or into how you interact in your relationships?
Uh, what I have done is I've read many books, been in coaching programs, but mainly I got honest with myself. I really was willing to look at who I was, how I acted, how I treated people, what was true and what was any kind of manipulation, and just stay in it, stay in it, keep dating, keep learning, and the feminine, how I carry myself, the words that I use. I created out of a course, being kindness, trust, and partnership. Is what I'm doing and what I'm saying. Is it kindness, trust, and partnership? And I also created seeing men as heroes, because that was the opposite of how I saw men. So that, and even when I created that, just saying it, declaring it, gave me a stomach ache. It just, no. But I was committed to it, and to keep going. And now that's just part of my life. And that comes into the being feminine and allowing someone to do something, for me or with me. And I'm in a dating relationship right now, for the last 4 months. And I was the feminine and supported him in car shopping last weekend. And that, I've bought many cars. I'm in real estate sales myself. So the times that I sat there and I wanted to take control of the conversation and judge his decision-making process, and I just kept kindness, trust, and partnership. There was nothing for me to do, nothing for me to say. When he asked me what I thought, I said what I thought and what I felt. And I just basically got to be a cheerleader. And in the end, I got to see how he makes decisions, and it all turned out.
Wow.
But if I would have jumped out of that boat, if I would have shifted energies in this dynamic, we would not, it would have rocked the boat. It would not work at all. That's so what I want.
That is so golden what you're saying. It's okay to stand back, sit back, observe, and just see what the person is going to do. You do not have to always grab the reins and say, you're doing it wrong. Do it like this. I wouldn't do it like that. You don't know what you're doing now, right? Even if you have those thoughts, you want to realize
I did.
a place to look at yourself to say, okay, bring it down.
Yeah. Why do I think I know best?
Yeah, that's gold.
And we're getting to know each other. We're just getting to know each other and our character, the character and values, and again, being a scientist, just observing. And I will say it is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but it is not impossible.
It's uncomfortable as you're learning, because like you were saying before, when you said your stomach hurt when you had to create They're My Hero, it's because there was some resistance there.
Absolutely.
And so as you kept allowing the resistance to be there, but stayed true to the commitment to discover them as heroes, it subsided.
Yes.
And you became a different person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What were you going to say, Ms. Legaux?
Well, I was going to say, I think in studying, so it's interesting because I think even the word feminine, prior to, I guess, understanding more about the feminine energies, I never considered myself feminine, because I was like, I don't get my nails done. It's like, I'm not a girly girl. Yeah. So in my mind, feminine women were really good. They wore heels and got their nails done, and they, and that was not me.
Right.
And so learning about feminine, but then when, like the list we talked about, I'm like, no, that's me. I'm like, that's me. And so getting, even that kind of definition of kind of just my own kind of self, who I am. The other thing I think is realizing the power in that femininity, because, some of that, like I said, the passiveness. And sometimes like I've had in life where, because I feel like I've kind of always been more, laid back, that kind of thing. But sometimes it came from a place of fear, or it came from a place of uncertainty, or, in kind of those spaces. And so it wasn't from a power place. It was kind of like a place of assurance. I'm quiet because I don't know, or I don't think I know, so I'm going to be quiet in this, in this space, and this kind of thinking and making myself small. And so in becoming more comfortable, with me and kind of understanding the energies, etc., I can see it, and not necessarily it's changed so much, where I'm like acting different, but it's from a different place. So I can choose to step back, but it's not because I don't have a voice, it's like, I'm choosing to allow, and I can yield. And I do understand what Wendi is saying about recognizing men for being men, and kind of really understanding that energy. Because I remember that point of, I think this way and I think from this way. He think, women are from Venus and women are from Mars, whatever. But really seeing it from a place of power, and not a place of one is better than the other.
That's right.
That's right. But really from a place of it's complementary. It's complementary. It works together. And when it's complementary, there's so much more power in it. And so I think kind of just recognizing the power in it also helps me to just kind of lean into it more as well, and kind of, just have that comfort there.
And I know we're getting to the top of the hour, but my spirit keeps saying the one word that we did not say about feminine energy was that it's magnetic.
It is magnetic.
So
it is magnetic.
The ability for women to lean back and attract things to themselves is one of the greatest powers. Ms. Legaux, you said
that's a superpower.
That's a superpower. You said I can need a ride, and a ride would show up.
I can need a ride. I will never forget. This was like last year, or and I don't even know how. I still don't know how this happened. I lost my husband. I moved into this house, and it was the first winter. We got all this snow, and I came, like, and I was trying to figure out how you're gonna, shovel the snow or whatever. And I came out, and my whole thing was shoveled, and I was like, who shoveled? Like, who shoveled my?
Find out who shoveled your snow?
I never find out who shoveled the snow, but you know what I did? Thank you, universe. That I received it. I receive it more. I receive it more, and it's happened several times. I mean, since then, it's happened like neighbors or whatever, and that's what I mean by it's like, for me, that level of allowing, even with my son, because that's a part, like, and I get in the, like, he doesn't have his dad with him physically anymore, and so I struggle, and I don't want to say I struggle with, but I'm very aware of just him and how he moves in the world. And every time I watch, I was talking to someone about this. I was like, you should just see how men interact with him. I mean, men on the street, it's just like, and I'm looking at this because I'm like, he don't, like, he's walking down the street with his shoe untied, and a man will just come and tie his shoe, like bend down and tie his shoe. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Just certain, just, it's just a certain way that men just kind of, just give him an extra layer. And I know, or I connected to, because I'm like, this is the prayers I have put out into the universe around, my son and his dad, and just, and kind of like, I'm here, but he's missing. And it just reminds me of like, it's missing, it's not, because it's still there, but it's just coming in different, it's just coming in different ways. And then just being, and that's why it's just like me just operating in a state of just receiving it as it comes, just receiving it as it comes. Is not coming for, it's coming in different ways, and I receive it, and I'm thankful for it all.
That's wonderful. What were you going to say about magnetism, Ausar?
As a male learning to operate both in masculine and feminine energy from an androgynous place,
Mm-hmm.
use magnetism all the time. When I used to create from doing, it was exhausting.
Mm,
But when I learned to create from
mm.
just allowing, which is magnetism,
Mm-hmm.
it's a much wonderful place. For example, I always find a car space. I can be in a crowded place, hundreds of thousands of people, and I'll find a
Yeah,
spot right in
I can
front.
park a spot.
I don't have to look. I allow. I just flow intuitively. Turn here, and I've made it a game. And then I acknowledge it in gratitude
Mhm.
that the universe is friendly to me.
Oh, yes. Yes. Wendy, what would you say about magnetism?
Well, uh, where I just experienced that in this situation is I had the nudge, after meditating and this kind of the universe kind of showing up, um, to put my profile on online dating,
Mm.
and even with some resistance around it, and kind of as a joke to myself on Valentine's Day, and I put my profile up, and on Monday night, and by Friday night I was sitting across the table from this gentleman that is the same man that I'm still for later, the only one that I messaged a few other ones, but he was the one who stepped right up, asked me out, showed up,
Oh, wow.
does what he says he's gonna do. Very, very safe, very calm, very balanced energy, which balances and calms me. Just a whole new experience that I've never had before.
Wow, that's good.
I
So
bet
you're the
Yeah.
magnet. You got your magnetism, right? The
That's the
magnet.
magnet. That's it. You attracted
Yes.
that. Wow. Well, we
Yeah.
have reached, I know, right? I was just like, this is so, we could have kept going for hours here. I hear that. We may have to create something around this conversation. I love the energy of, what was displayed tonight, and it's time for us to end this. So, as we come to a close, I want you guys to let people know how they can find you. If you have any programs or anything coming up that you like to share with them, and have them engaged, do that. And then just one final comment to sign off with, so that we can get people ready for tomorrow night. So, Wendy, I'm gonna let you start. Let's, what's your closing remarks and your sign off?
Thank you so much for creating this space. This is my first time doing anything like this.
You were phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, as nervous as I was earlier today, that all disappeared
Good.
once we got here, once I saw you.
No.
And yeah, so I'm beginning my coaching practice. So the way to get a hold of me is through Facebook, Wendi Nies Wiltfang. Nies was my maiden name, and so that's how you can find me on Facebook. Send me a friend request, send me a message, we'll connect that way. And I would just say keep going, just don't give up. Don't give up. You fall off that horse and you just get right back on, and take your time. Alone time for sure has been pivotal these last 12 years of taking time by myself, and with friends and with family, not always having to be dating, not always having to be, with a man or trying to make something happen, and just don't give up.
Very cool. Tinishia, Miss Legaux.
You can find me on Facebook, Tinishia Legaux, or Instagram. I'm a new coach, so just building my coaching practice. So really focusing on people that are kind of going through transition, etc. So Tinishia Legaux on Instagram, Tinishia Legaux on Facebook, Legaux. My closing, I think I wanted to close kind of going back to why I joined this conversation and really the bigger conversation just around saving our families and understanding that these conversations, this smaller one, but conversations lead to other conversations, and we talk about the skills that have not been taught, the conversations that have not, that I know I didn't have growing up, um, as well, and really having our youth just understand themselves, because this idea of male and female energy is really about our understanding of self. And so I guess my words are: study self. When you get done, study some more. There's always more to learn, and as you learn and heal self, you affect others as well, and that's part of how we heal and save our families.
Yes, very well said. Thank you. And my brother Ausar, take us out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can be found at my YouTube on my YouTube channel, Oasis Spiritual Center. That's the YouTube channel. And when you go into the banner, you will be able to find my websites and anything you need to know. I am a master coach. I take on very few clients, but I intuitively decide who's who. But I do a lot of work inside of soul path exploration using the destiny cards. That really gets you into that in work. I want to close with: we are all divine spiritual beings having a human experience, which allows us to master life. It's called an initiation.
It's
That's
called
all I
an
have.
initiation. That's right. And we all asked to be here. So
That's right.
Yes.
I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being here. And we have a full week. This is just day one. Tomorrow, join us as we talk about nutrition has been weaponized. And we have a couple of more coaches who will be talking with us. So tune back in at 7:30 for Ignite Your Soul Connection. And we appreciate you listening to us. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.